Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us at our webinar entitled Prepare Your Organization for Blackbaud CRM. My name is Donna Caputo, and I'm the Managing Director of Consulting Services at JCA. We are thrilled that you've been able to take time out of your busy day to join us as we talk about this important subject. Before we get started, I've got a few housekeeping notes. Everyone will be muted during this webinar. We're going to have time for Q&A at the end of the webinar, so please use the chat window as we go along to submit questions as they occur to you. We'll grab your questions at the end and answer as many of them as we can. Okay, that's that. Let's get started. I'm here with my colleague James Meinhardt, the Director of Consulting Services at JCA, and Carrie White, Vice President for Advancement Services at the University of Cincinnati Foundation. So why are we here? JCA has almost 30 years of nonprofit consulting experience, including all aspects of enterprise-level CRM implementations. And we want to share some important advice about preparation for these projects because we believe preparation is a key indicator of project success, and we know it can be hard to know where to start. And as the slide says, we're here to help. Because Blackbaud CRM implementation projects have a reputation, and it's not for being easy, fun, and safe. The reputation is more that they are difficult, challenging, and risky. So how do you avoid the pitfalls that come along with a complicated and challenging project? We think there's a one-word answer, and that word is prepare. Have you ever watched one of those reality shows about people living out in the wild, like Survivor or Naked and Afraid? When people choose to enter a contest, and that contest involves living out in the middle of nowhere and defying Mother Nature, you know that they have chosen to do something difficult. They have to make fire, they have to find water, make a shelter, stay out of the elements. They can be up against horrific rainstorms, cold, bug bites, sunburn, lack of food, you name it. But every person who's there knew with 100% certainty that they were signing up for something hard. Now, for Survivor, there's a $1 million prize at the end of the road, and for Naked and Afraid, there is simply the honor of having survived 21 days, naked and afraid, with a stranger in the middle of nowhere. And I suppose there's a different type of person who chooses to go through that sort of experience in order to try to win a prize versus the person who simply wants bragging rights. But regardless, everybody involved knows that it's going to be hard. Now, these competitors have some things in common, and I would say that the most important thing that they have in common is that they prepare before they enter the competition. They go to the gym to gain the physical strength they'll need. They learn new skills like fire making or trap making or fishing with the stick that they've learned how to turn into a spear. They practice puzzles and memory games, and they plan out their strategies for making it to the end. Now, I'm not saying that implementing Blackbaud CRM is like being a contestant on Survivor, but there is a prize at the end of the road, and you're more likely to attain the prize if you are prepared and if you go into your project with your eyes wide open. And that doesn't just mean you personally. It means everyone who's involved. And that's the challenge, whether you are the technical project owner, or you're a fundraiser, or you're a development associate, or you're the executive director or CEO. If your team or a team that you are a part of is going to implement Blackbaud CRM, you all need to go into the project with your eyes wide open, aware of risks, thinking through ways to minimize their potential impacts, and making sure that the folks who will be on the periphery of the project but nevertheless involved understand the role that they will play in the project's success. So today we're going to share with you some keys to planning a Blackbaud CRM project that we want you all to keep in mind regardless of where you are in your project. You might have started your implementation already, you might be thinking about it, you might be in the middle of your system selection, or you might just be wondering if you should look around for a replacement for your current system. Well, we're glad you're here. We're going to talk about starting your BBCRM off right so you end up smelling like a rose and looking like a hero. First, we're going to tell you why you need to know your organizational readiness level and suggest ways to improve it if you find it's too low. To help you along, we're going to provide you with a worksheet to to help you assess your organization's readiness in 5 key areas. We're going to talk about the importance of a great project team and how to get one. We'll tackle the challenges of figuring out who does what during the project and talk about why a RACI matrix can be misleading. We'll describe 15 key roles in an implementation project so you don't forget to fill them. We'll get some key advice from Carrie White as she shares some lessons learned from her experience implementing BBCRM. But wait, there's more. As an added bonus, we're going to talk about the 2 types of resistance you are going to encounter in your project. And we'll share the top 3 reasons people resist and provide some strategies for overcoming that resistance. When we're done, you're going to have some new ideas about preparation that you can put into action immediately. Now, when you're ready to start a race, there are 3 words used to get going. They are ready, set, and go. Let's start with ready. I'm happy to introduce my colleague, James Meinhardt, so he can talk with you about assessing your organization's readiness. James?
Thanks, Donna. Understanding in what ways your organization is ready or less than ready for implementing a new CRM is an important piece of preparation. You might think to yourself, of course we're ready, right? Maybe you are, maybe you're not. Sometimes in the excitement of getting project approval, building out budgets, and gathering blackout dates, it's easy to miss getting the answers to how ready your organization actually is for such an important project. Organizational readiness for BBCRM implementations can be assessed with the 5 C's. Case is the justification that a development CRM implementation is warranted and worth the significant investment. Capability is the skill set of the staff who will be responsible for implementing and supporting the development CRM. Capacity refers to the organizational structure in place, number of staff to support the implementation, and expected workload of those staff. Change is the organization's disposition to alter its core technology and business processes. Culture refers to the organizational characteristics that affect an implementation. This could include the support, both political and financial, that the development office has within the organization and the level at which leadership will support the project. So why does this matter? Well, if you know where you're ready and where you're not ready, you can adjust for success. For example, if you know that your technical resources will need new skills so they can participate in the implementation and later manage the new system, you can incorporate that into your preparation. You might find that you have enough people to run the system once it's implemented, but that you need help during your implementation. That discovery would lead you to take different steps than if you identify you're already understaffed. Here's how the process works. Evaluate each of the 5 C's and score your organization in each area on a scale of 1 to 5, from strongly disagree to strongly agree. You'll use a set of questions that are tied to each of the C's. This is one of the things that we'll be delivering to you after this webinar. You might have 10 factors tied to capacity and 15 tied to capability. For example, you might assess the project leader's experience in running similar projects to get a capability score. You might think about how the organization manages risk or shows willingness to invest in training to get a culture score. Ultimately, you average your scores and use a radar chart to visualize your results. Set a goal of reaching at least a 4 in each of the readiness areas. So a 4 on this scale would reach the agree mark. When you identify an area in which you fall below a 4, work with your team to identify ways to improve your scores. Now, let's take a couple of minutes to imagine that you score low in one of the 5 C's. What could that mean as you get ready? If your case isn't strong, you may find that you can't get approval to move forward with your project. In this situation, you have to develop strategies for working with executive leadership or with the board or both. Getting buy-in from your key stakeholders is critical to the success of the CRM implementation. You need to show them that you truly need the CRM for whatever reason, being it technological advances, accessibility, increased opportunities, or a combination of several factors. A strong business case shows the key stakeholders, often those that have the final say in whether you get the new CRM, that you've done your due diligence. A weak case is the most common complication when seeking leadership approval. For capability, if you determine that your staff doesn't have the right mix of skills, or they're missing the kind of aptitude that they need to be able to take on the required new system learning, you're going to have to figure out what that means in terms of your resources. You might have to recruit someone to fill a gap, or you might have to plan some training either before or during the project to get someone up to speed, or you might have to outsource some of that work. Capacity is different than capability. When you score capabilities, you look at the skill set and experience of the resources expected to complete the project. Capacity ignores whether those resources have the skills and considers only organizational structure and staff availability. Maybe you're already understaffed. Many organizations work with a lean staffing model, and that might be fine when you're working in well-known ways, but it can be surprisingly challenging in a system implementation. You could find that you simply don't have enough human capital to account for the number of work hours that are required. Lack of capacity can lead to project delays and extensions, which of course will lead to budget overruns. You can advocate for more staff, both temporarily for the implementation and permanently, which could mean to get you through the implementation and then stay on to support the CRM. Change is inevitable, but some people still fight against it. I love the Mark Twain quote, "I'm in favor of progress, it's change I don't like." Assessing your organization's ability to change the way it operates really starts at the top. If the organizational leadership is on board and excited about what is to come, that should filter down. In fact, if change is difficult for your organization, then looking to leadership to lead the charge is often the best strategy to take. And when you assess culture, you're really looking at leadership in the organization's ability and willingness to invest where necessary to ensure a successful conclusion. You might use a strategy of looking to other projects and evaluating how they were run. If you find that the right culture is lacking, you'll want to make sure that your project has good leadership and that your organization's leaders understand what's being asked of their staff members. Like I said before, you want to set a goal of reaching at least a 4 in each of the readiness areas. When you identify an area in which you fall below a 4, work with your team to identify ways to improve your scores. As you work to improve your scores in each area, you'll see the radar visual shift. You're looking for a more symmetrical result as close to the outside edges as possible. Donna, I'll hand it back to you to talk about the project team.
Thank you, James. Okay, once you've assessed your readiness in these areas, then you'll take your lessons and apply them as you get set. The process of getting set is preparing to hit the gas. This is about assembling the team, creating expectations, building out work plans, assigning resources to tasks, and figuring out how you can keep your business rolling while you prepare for the new system. Remember, for a period of time, you're still going to be working in your old system, and it's important not to shortchange the work that you need to do to keep the lights on. So what is a project team anyway? At the core, the project team is a temporary team. It's a group of people from multiple departments or business units who are brought together to deliver a project. The team needs subject matter experts, people with a vision for the project outcome, people who are disciplined and who have the types of relationships required to be able to communicate outside the project team and to evangelize for the project. The team will likely include managers, sponsors, key design leads, and key technical leads, but not every single subject matter expert. But you know what you shouldn't do? You shouldn't assemble a project team made up of only IT representatives. You need a well-rounded group, because we don't want a moderately good project team. We want a great one. So what makes a project team great? First, we have a great leader. A great leader is going to be able to lead this diverse group of people. Look for someone with a strong personality who is willing and able to hold people accountable, but who can be diplomatic when doing so. The project leader needs to have a firm hand, but also must be mindful that people don't implement software on a regular basis. And the project leader is there to support the project team. The project team members must understand clearly the expectations for their involvement. People need to know that we need them to use their expertise as the team works to implement the software. If you observe a project team where the members don't understand their responsibility or they're afraid to exercise that responsibility, you will see a project team that ends up having their decisions made for them. When everyone understands their role, the project team can work together to get the best out of its members. The project team should include members representing a wide range of business interests who can think past how they currently operate. You might have come across a person with deep knowledge of the organization who has a particular way of doing things and who cannot see past their current process. This would typically not be a good person to have on a project team. We need participants who are excited to implement the new software that's going to help move the organization forward. Things are going to be different, guaranteed, and we are actually looking for that. The project team requires subject matter experts who are prepared to own their area of CRM. If people aren't subject matter experts, they don't really belong on the project team. Everyone needs to have an area of expertise. And as we assemble our team, we will define roles and areas of responsibility to take advantage of our expertise. The project team's responsibility is to find the best ways to use the system to support their business. So you need people who understand what needs to be done. We have the right number of people on a great project team. A project team that's too large is as bad as a project team that's too small, just in a different way. A project team that's too small is never going to be able to do the work that's required. And a project team that's too large is going to be overcomplicated, and that's most likely going to affect the team's decision-making abilities. So just like Goldilocks looked for the porridge, the chair, and the bed that was just right, it's important to give thought to the size of your project team. Finally, project team members are all in. They are excited to collaborate, negotiate, and to create a better system for the organization. They are willing to be flexible, especially in areas that are more important to another group than to theirs. What it all comes down to is the culture of the team you're building. You need to bring people together who have different viewpoints, responsibilities, and expertise, who also have a desire to work together for the good of the organization. However, the project team can't do everything. The project team will need to assign responsibilities to people who are not on the team. For example, you need testers to test the system, and all the testers are not going to be on the project team. The challenge here is to put project work on people's plates in different project phases. And this can be tough because everybody already has a full-time job. Some of the places where you'll likely need non-project team resources would include design sessions for specific functional areas like annual giving or volunteer management, user acceptance testing activities, data conversion testing and validation. So how do you make sure that these resources have the availability they're going to need to focus on the project work when they have a full plate of work in front of them already? The key is stakeholder involvement and setting expectations early on with staff and your leadership. One of the project team's major responsibilities is to communicate and work with staff who are not on the project team. So how do you manage all these tasks and resource assignments? Well, here's what you don't do. You don't rely on a RACI matrix. As a matter of fact, I like to say, beware the RACI matrix. A RACI matrix is not going to help manage resource assignments. It describes the ownership of deliverables, and it's designed to keep people from tripping over each other or arguing about decision making. RACI is an acronym that stands for Responsible, Accountable, Consulted, and Informed. Responsible, only one party can be responsible for an item. This is the party who performs the work. Accountable, this is the party that is answerable for the completion of the deliverable. This party must approve and sign off on work that the responsible party performs. Consulted, this party is consulted and is expected to provide advice, but they don't produce work or approve work. And informed, this party is kept up to date. Blackbaud will deliver and document and deliver a RACI matrix, sometimes in the statement of work, sometimes within the project management plan. The matrix will call out each project deliverable and indicate the RACI assignments. It'll look something like this. Okay, so this looks pretty straightforward. Why the dire warning to beware? Here are a few reasons. When Blackbaud delivers your RACI matrix, it will come early in the process, perhaps embedded inside a project planning PDF or a statement of work. These documents are often reviewed and then set aside as the business of the project takes over. So it's really difficult to associate the RACI matrix with any kind of project planning or resource assignment work. Also, if you are receiving the RACI before any of the work actually starts, then you aren't participating in the RACI assignment decisions. The identifier of client versus Blackbaud is too vague. It says nothing about the real who doing the work. And there's no indication here about how much time these activities will take. In order to really know what we are committing to, we need to know the specific resource, the specific time frame, and the estimated hours. We get none of that from a RACI matrix. Plus, being accountable can be tough when you are asked to be accountable for work that is difficult to evaluate. Here are a couple of standard items that fall into that category. Okay, here we're looking at two specific deliverables related to data conversion. We're assuming in this case that Blackbaud is providing the data conversion. And you can see from the matrix that they are the responsible party for the data conversion code and the data conversion summary report. However, the client is accountable for both. So you are accountable for work you did not do and that you cannot actually see. Now, what this really means is that the client must approve the data conversion. You must accept it. But what this says is that the client must somehow approve the conversion program, process, and code and verify that it works as specified in the conversion requirements or the data mapping. How can a client possibly do this? It's impossible. We will never actually review Blackbaud's conversion code. We are simply going to review the results of running the code, and we are going to test the data. The pressure is on the organization to know enough about what the conversion results should be to be able to approve or not approve the results. In the summary report example, we can't actually be accountable for the accuracy of the report. We can only review the report and hope that it's correct. We can accept what's in front of us, but we cannot actually attest to the fact that it is complete. For example, that every error was found and accounted for by the conversion analyst, or that the contents of the report is accurate. We can only approve that the report was in fact delivered. Most importantly though, the reason this RACI matrix is not going to help us in terms of running our implementation is that we have to know specifically who is going to do what and when during the project their tasks are going to be active, and how much time during their workday or their work week are they going to need to devote to our project. And the RACI matrix is not going to help you understand any of that. So, what resources do we actually need? Let's hear from James again as he describes 15 of the key implementation roles you need to be prepared to fill. James, back to you.
Thanks, Donna. So a little while ago, you heard Donna talk about what makes a great project team, and she mentioned briefly some roles. It's important when you go into a CRM implementation that you know the 15 roles your organization will need to fill. The project sponsor is the person with the overall responsibility for ensuring that the project satisfies the predefined business needs and goals of the project. The sponsor works closely with the project manager and executive committee and advocates across the organization to commit to such a significant change. The project manager oversees the day-to-day operations of the implementation project. The person in this role manages the schedule and allocation of resources, ensuring work is assigned and completed according to the project plan. The project manager is responsible for managing project issues and escalating unresolved issues, proactively disseminating project information to stakeholders, and ensuring efficient and effective communication among the project team. This role manages project scope and risks. Now, it's important to note that Blackbaud will assign their own project manager to the implementation. However, every organization must have its own project manager to organize your own resources, including staff and budget. The executive committee provides executive leadership for the implementation project. Committee members advocate for the CRM project across the organization. They assist the project sponsor and project manager with unresolved issues, particularly issues that cross departmental lines. The project team executes the work to complete the project. This team assists the project manager in identifying and resolving issues, and the team members may advise on the assignment of staff resources, and they advocate for the project to the organization stakeholders. You might put the manager and coordinators from all parties on a team together, especially if multiple vendors are coordinating activities during the project. These people might need to work together to coordinate activities outside of a regular project team meeting. For each functional area, a lead serves as the primary contact during the design and convert phases. Each lead attends design meetings for their functional area, takes notes and gathers feedback from the design team, and this person analyzes workflows and envisions business processes in the new system. For testing, the leads help prepare testing scenarios based on the identified use cases and processes. And they troubleshoot errors and help collect, rank, and resolve bugs and issues. Each functional area requires subject matter experts, or SMEs, to contribute their domain knowledge to the design, convert, and output phases. The SMEs attend design meetings, specifying requirements and providing feedback. They review workflows and processes to ensure they fulfill the business requirements of their functional area. During data conversion, the SMEs provide expertise on legacy system data in their functional areas. They participate in data mapping, conversion and user acceptance testing, and issue resolution. And during the output phase, the SMEs provide requirements for the development of system customizations and custom reports, and test the output when complete to ensure accuracy. The technical lead is the primary technical contact with Blackbaud. This person prioritizes and assigns the development work for customizations and manages the developers to accomplish it. The technical lead participates in design and data conversion meetings as needed and performs high-level validation of the data conversion. The conversion engineer validates the data conversion. This could include cleaning up some data, setting up new codes, converting some data from old to new, and transforming other data. The developer creates customizations to the new system and integrations with third-party applications. This person is responsible for system and unit testing and for writing documentation for the solutions. The business analyst participates in the design, documentation, and testing of customizations and integrations with third-party applications. This person documents the functional needs from the end users and later tests the solution to confirm it meets the defined requirements. The business intelligence or reporting lead works with the technical team to understand the organization's reporting needs. The lead defines and develops any customizations required for the data warehouse or reports and manages the data warehouse once the new CRM system is in place. The report writer is responsible for delivering data to end users to satisfy their business needs. This person must understand the organization's reporting requirements and develop custom reports, queries, and exports. The database administrator, or DBA, is responsible for system configuration tasks and user management. This person manages system backups and restores, the application of upgrades and vendor patches, and other general system maintenance on an ongoing basis. The DBA provides expert-level system support for the CRM and is responsible for complex application functionality and providing technical leadership to other team members. And finally, the training coordinator creates and executes the training plan and end-user training. This person develops training courseware tailored to the organization's needs and is responsible for its ongoing modifications. The training coordinator provides ongoing training at the organization for new staff and training on system upgrades and new release features. This person maintains documentation on the organization's specific uses of the CRM system. So you might be thinking now, how could we possibly fill all of these roles? Well, there are a few expectations to keep in mind when trying to fill the roles. One, you should expect to fill some roles with existing staff. However, you might not be able to fill all of these roles with existing staff alone. You might need to assign a single person to fill multiple roles. You might need to transfer some existing responsibilities from one person to another during the implementation, or to outsource some work temporarily to free up certain resources. You might need to hire new full-time employees to implement the CRM and support it after the system is live. You might need to outsource some project responsibilities to leverage a third party's expertise with the CRM system, as they'll be needed only during the implementation and not long-term. Now, I'd like to introduce Carrie White to share her real-world experience implementing the Blackbaud CRM as the Vice President for Advancement Services at the University of Cincinnati Foundation.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, James. We implemented Blackbaud CRM here at the University of Cincinnati in October of 2015. Donna and James reached out to me and asked if I could lend a little bit of my insight into how our project managed to be successful in the end, and what are those key takeaways that I had. So we're calling those the golden nuggets today. Donna came up with them, so don't blame that for me. First of all, success. I think it's important when you tackle any of these projects that you determine what success is for your organization, for you personally, and also for the vendor. This is what I mean by that. When you go live with a new product like Blackbaud CRM, there's a lot of functionality that's available to you. And if you don't define what success looks like, your organization may expect that on day one, you're doing everything. You're doing the advanced marketing efforts, when really success on day one may be that everyone can log in and that you can process and receipt a gift. If you don't define that for your organization and get that buy-in, you will fail because you will have false expectations of what success is. That's also doing a gut check with yourself and saying, what is success for me? Because we all are overachievers and we want to do the best job possible, but what are you setting up as a reality of what you can achieve as leading this project? And finally, understanding what success is for the vendor. Be it Blackbaud, any product that's out there, success for them is to say, yep, we got them live. It doesn't mean that all of your requirements were necessarily met to the fullest of the expectations that you had. So understanding that you have different vantage points on what success looks like is critically important, and helping to communicate those throughout the organization and especially to your leadership team is critical. The next thing is requirements and reality. So when you're going through the process of looking at a new system, or you're realizing the system that you've purchased and what the capacity of the product is, suddenly everything becomes a requirement. Everybody wants to do the really cool stuff right away, and everybody wants everything to work instantly. How you prioritize those becomes critical within the planning of your project and the execution of it for ultimate success. Having a matrix in place to say this is a must-have versus a nice-to-have is critical, and thinking and agreeing with your project team up front of how you're going to prioritize those helps drive the success. The next thing I would say is the ability for someone in your organization to make decisions. And what I mean by that is, at some point during the conversion process, you're going to have to make hard decisions, things that might even be wrong at the end of the day, but some of them, somebody will have to make them. having someone on your project team that's empowered to make those tough decisions and make those calls, perhaps when two team members disagree, is critical. But that person has to understand the implications of the decision that they're making, the impact of what's going to happen, and live by the ultimate decision. So having someone that's empowered to do that on behalf of the organization is critical. And finally, what I call the shiny bauble syndrome. If you can't answer why this project must happen, the project will fail. Everybody wants to implement something new. If you've seen the hype cycle, the Gartner hype cycle, everybody wants AI. I had somebody walk in my office today. They don't even know what that means. If you can't back into a decision with clear reasons for embarking on this project, the organization is going to fail, and it needs to be ready to support that decision because it's fulfilling a business need. Those are things that we learn from our conversion, and I hope they help your conversion be successful.
Thank you so much, Carrie. We really appreciate that. Now, I promised a bonus, the top 3 reasons for user resistance. We've come to that moment. I know everyone can't wait to hear what they are. Reason number 3, unclear reasons for implementing. Funny, that was a great segue from what you just had to say, Carrie. If you don't share the reason why the current situation must change, you will not have people on board. You have to cast your vision so that everyone understands what will be gained. Why can't you keep using the system you've used for 10 years? Let everyone know the results of your assessment, the reasons why the current system is unsustainable or won't allow you to meet the organization's strategic goals. And if you can't answer this, you're probably going to rank pretty low in the case readiness area, by the way. Overcome this objection with great communication from organizational leadership. Reason number 2, fear. What if I can't learn this new system? I've been doing my job the same way for X number of years, and if I fail, I might end up without a job. These are real fears that people have. Overcome this objection by offering lots of training, including staff in the system design, and rewarding effort and outcome. And reason number 1, the devil that you know. I might not be efficient, but I know how to do what I know needs to be done. The advice for these folks is to keep them close. You know the saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. If you can turn a naysayer into an evangelist for the new system, your life will be much easier. But this mindset can require lots of work on your part to handle. So let's talk about the types of resistance and the strategies for overcoming them. First of all, the title of the slide is right. Resistance is guaranteed. And what are the 2 types of resistance you're going to encounter? You will encounter active resistance and passive resistance. When you encounter active resistance, let me just say, you're going to know it. When you see people who are chit-chatting with their coworkers about, why do we even need this new system? And it's never going to work. You'll know that's active resistance. Passive resistance is a little harder to recognize. Sometimes people become more resistant the closer they get to the end. They appear engaged at the beginning of the project, and perhaps you notice them faking their way through things as you get farther along. You sense that they are not really on board. Some examples of this might be someone who's just not paying attention during a training session. Maybe they're constantly checking their email. Or it might be someone who just never shows up at meetings or who always has to leave early. They probably always have a good excuse, but they're just not engaged the way they should be. So what do you do? Well, there's 2 strategies for conquering these types of resistance: participative or directive, or what I like to call nice and less nice. Participative strategies are certainly the nicest to use. This is where you engage with your resistors. Let them play with the new system and praise them when they engage. Include them in your design process. User participation is key to adoption and the implementation success. And you can't afford to have folks over in the corner talking with one another about how your project is going to fail, so get them involved. Ideas might include having a contest to name your project, or giving a prize to the team with the best user acceptance testing participation. You have to find ways to recognize and encourage participation. After all, you know that you're implementing a system that is better than the one you have today. So logic says that the more exposure to the new system you allow and encourage, the more likely your users are to find things to look forward to in the new system. And when they begin to understand the personal benefits to them as well as to the organization, they should come along. Now, the directive strategies are more straightforward. They're the ones you use when the participative strategies don't work. And I do kind of refer to these strategies as less nice. For example, if someone simply won't come on board, if they resist all your overtures, you're left with some very strong possible actions. You can reassign them. You could demote them. You could eliminate their job. Because at a certain level, it has to be clear to everyone that participating in the project is not optional. So make sure to issue any directives from organizational leaders. You could even provide financial incentives if that works, but you just can't excuse someone from the process. Whatever you do, don't ignore the resistance you encounter, because when left to fester, it can really grow into an unhealthy situation that would have been much easier to handle early on. Don't let it get out of control at the end, just when you thought you were home free. So now we have come to the end of our material, and we would love to take any questions that you may have. And Allie Davis will be moderating for us. So Allie, unmute yourself and let us know if we have any questions that have come in over the chat. If you have questions now and you haven't sent them in, just go right ahead in the chat window and send those in. And Allie will let you kind of read the questions for us. We'll answer as many as we can.
All right, this is Allie. Thank you so much. Just waiting 1 second. Okay, we have one. If BBCRM is a product, why are there design sessions? What do you have to design?
Well, I mean, it is a product. Absolutely. There is certain functionality that works in certain ways out of the box. However, it is also, you might consider it a foundation for development at the same time. So you have an ability to design certain ways that your processes will work or certain ways that your data will be structured in the database, and that's what the design sessions are really all about, figuring out how certain areas or business units are going to use the system and identifying where there might be gaps in the kind of out-of-the-box way it works and the way you feel it needs to work for your organization based on your requirements. Does anybody else have anything to kind of add to that? Okay. Anything else? So do we have any? I guess that's the answer. So Allie, anything else?
Yes. Here's another one. Can one person fill 2 roles in the project?
Oh, James, you want to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I think especially in roles that don't overlap in the project schedule, I think you have to look at who's capable and who has the capacity to do what. And I think that some ways that we've seen that overlap of, having multiple roles would be like the technical lead might also be the DBA or might be the reporting lead. The business analyst a lot of times might transition to become the training coordinator. So there's definitely overlap. And a lot of times you might have a functional lead or a SME that is also responsible for another role within the project.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think the key to knowing if it's okay to do that, like it's possible that you have people who you could fill multiple roles, right? The key is understanding if it's okay to assign them to multiple roles. Are you overbooking them? So that kind of goes to the project planning and the resource allocation that you have to do within your set of tasks and durations and start and stop dates and estimated hours of that kind of project planning work, just to make sure that you are putting people in 2 roles and setting them up for success.
Awesome. Okay. We have another question here. What percentage of staff time is required for the project?
I can jump
Well,
in
it's
on this
going to,
one, Donna.
yeah. Oh, sure, Carrie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it certainly depends on the phase of the project and what you're responsible to, but I think it's important to make no mistake about it, that as you're going through a conversion, especially with a product as large as CRM, some people have 50% workload, if not more, added to their daily responsibilities. Be it user acceptance testing, be it design sessions, be it just hashing through how we're going to do a task that we do every day normally now and don't give much thought to. It is a significant undertaking, and the resources required shouldn't be underestimated.
And I would add too that all of these, the projects have their ebbs and flows, and so it's, we tell people going through this that you should really expect that on average you're going to, depending on the role, you might spend 50% of your time on this, but it might mean that for 1 week, maybe during design or maybe during user acceptance testing, that it's actually much higher than 50%. It might be 75 or 80%. And so one very important piece to all of this is making sure that you have a great project manager who understands all of the people's capacity and capabilities in these roles, and making sure that we're looking very far out into how can we best utilize these people, and how do we make sure that we aren't wasting time, that we're really being cognizant of their availability and their skill set, and sticking to the project plan.
Right. Great points, all.
We do have.
Well, we're kind of getting to. Do we have? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Allie.
I think we have time for one more.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
One more.
All right. How do you make sure an implementation stays on time and on budget?
James, I'm going to give that to you.
Again, it's critical to have an excellent project manager, and a lot of times the title project manager is thrown around, and so I think that you really have to look closely at whoever you're assigning as the project manager, that they truly have project management experience. And so, I mean, there's an entire organization around project management. There's certification around project management. So it's so important to make sure that the person that's managing the project really has the skill set to do so. And so we don't want to paint a picture that these projects are easy. It's like, what Donna was starting with, that so much of this has to do with preparing yourself. And so the project initiation and planning phases of the project are critical to staying on the schedule and on budget. You know that you're going to have to work with a Blackbaud project manager. If you are outsourcing some integrations, you might have to work with another project manager. So having that really strong internal project manager to get you through the process, and someone that really understands how to plan a project, that is critical. That is key to staying on budget and on schedule. A good plan is what makes the project ultimately successful.
Yeah, I would agree. You're never going to regret that you prepared too well. All right. Well, I think we're about out of time here. So I'd just like to thank you all for attending today's webinar. We know that it's easy to get overwhelmed with the work that comes along with these projects. We really don't want anyone to get off on the wrong foot. That can be kind of easy to do. And we're here to help you. Just want to say it out loud. We're here to help at any point in your project, whether you're just thinking it over, you're making a decision on a system, or you're planning for your project, or even if you're in full-on implementation mode. We're always happy to talk with organizations about their needs and their challenges. We're going to be sending out some materials we discussed today. We hope you'll find them helpful. Let us know what you think. So thanks for coming. Have a great day. We hope to stay connected. Thank you all.
Thank you.